So, let me begin with a small case study. Imagine you're living in a wartime and you own 100 airplanes. During combat, 500 of them are shot down and only 500 manage to return to base. However, the wings are covered with bullet holes and the tails are damaged. Now imagine that the resources are extremely limited and you cannot reinforce every part of the aircraft. So here's the question. If you were the engineer, which part of the airplane would you reinforce? My guess is that maybe 80% of us would choose the part of most of visible damage. The wings, the tails, the areas full of bullet holes. And maybe 20% of us would think differently. But I'm not here to say which answer is right or wrong. I want to talk about a statistician named Abraham Ware, who looked at these exact problems and came to a different conclusion. He said, do not reinforce the part with the most bullet holes. Reinforce the part with no ones. At first, that's so strange, right? But his logic was simple but powerful. He said, he realized that the data only showed that the planes that had to make it plane. It means if they come back with the damaged wings, it means the wings can return with tech damage. But the planes that were hit in the cockpit or the engine, they never return. They are missing from the data. So, the real danger from this case study is not about the visible damage. It's about the individual absence. So the important lessons in this case study were not about the airplanes. It's about how we see our problems. In life, we tend to focus on 80% of the noise, the symptoms, the part that can stream our attention. But the real 20% is the root cause, the leverage point, the part that can change everything becomes blur. And because we fail to see the vital 20%, our instinct is to fix everything as soon as possible. We work harder, we say yes to more, we carry too many things at once. And eventually, we burn out, not because we are weak, but because our effort is scattered. That's the reason why today I want to bring to this day a principle from economics and management. The 80-20 principle associated with Pareto. The idea is simple. 80% of outcomes result from 20% of own causes. But I'm not here to say this principle as a productivity trick. I want to see it as the way of seeing and thinking. Because of me, 80-20 is not simply about doing less. It's about how we see a problem clearly. Yeah, and on this stage, my speech was just around two ideas. First of all, 80-20 help us identify the leverage point behind a problem. And secondly, this principle reminds us focus requires elimination, not addition. But before I go further, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I define myself as a workaholic. Yeah, a workaholic. And I define that if I have 100 problems, I will solve all 100. And honestly, I was proud about that because I used work at the roof that was responsible, valuable, and capable. I do many things at the same time, but just a few things were truly moving forward. I just solved the problem on the surface, but the true problem were truly repeating. It's not solved at the root cause. And then, at the same time, my both mental health and physical health were sending me urgent signals. And then, I have an opportunity to be a vice president of Isaac in Vietnam. That I had to lead 100 people with 2,100 people with 21 different backgrounds, different expectations, and different working styles. At first, I see many problems around my team, low motivation, inconsistent performance, conflict in collaboration, and sometimes miscommunication. And the old version of me would fix all of them at once. But at the next time, I try to ask myself another question. If I could only focus on one or two problem that truly matter, what would it be? After many conversations, observations, and moments of reflection, I realized that the root cause wasn't about the timeline, the workload, or even the system. The root cause was my member experience. When they didn't feel connected, they lose motivation. When they didn't understand the purpose behind the task, their performance became inconsistent. And once I identified the root cause, I had a strategy around the member experience. Every month, I scheduled a personal conversation with my team member, not just about tasks. I understand them as individuals. I understand their personality and how I can adjust and adapt my leadership style to fit them better. I also schedule the training sessions and I invited many people to share their experience. And I hope that my member can learn something about that. And it's worth. Another thing is that during project, I try to explain the why each task matter, and why they can contribute to the whole project. And I have to ensure that my member have to know the why they run this project. And that is the way that I know the 80-20 principle. The biggest realization for me is that people are the leverage point behind the operations. And when I focus the vital 20%, the other 80% started to grow, started moving, started going on. Yeah. And linked to this, I realized another thing is that effort can truly become better when it is placed in the right leverage. And it is my experience when I adapt this principle. But we can also see it in the business. I know that everybody knows this man, right? Steve Jobs. And one of the biggest, his leadership mindset, I really like him, is like true focus requires elimination, not addition. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in the late 1990s, the company was struggling with too many products, too many directions, too many versions of the products. And at this time, he simplified the company's entire product system. He cut down the Apple's scattered product lines, and instead, the company concentrated its energy on a much better and a much little product line. It's like iMac or professional desktop line. And the result was so credible. At first 6 weeks, iMac sold more than 278,000 units. And by the end of this month, iMac had become one of the strongest symbols of Apple's comeback. So this case study is not about Apple create a credible computer. It's about Apple regain direction by choosing not what to do. I think all of you guys think that saying no is uncomfortable, or cutting things away feels risky. We are afraid that if we delegate, if we remove another option, we will lose some opportunities. But sometimes, success doesn't come from adding more choice. It has come from the clarity to choosing and to move what doesn't matter. And that is the courage of 80-20. And this principle also built on 3 levels. First of all, is clarity. Clarity in choice. 80-20 doesn't begin with doing more. It begins with choose the right thing to do. Which task gives you more result? Which relationship or any background or environment that create more and more value and result for you? Without clarity, our effort become motions without action, without directions. And the second thing is focus. Focus in action. It's mean like with discipline in investing your time, your effort, your resources in the few choices that truly matter. And the last one is strategic thinking in direction. 2080s is not only useful for productivity or daily life. It shapes the long-term decisions. It's help us see what is the path, what is the resources, what is the benefit that can bring us, and this is where our effort can become a disproportionate impact. So if I have a chance to describe this principle in one sentence, I would say 80-20 principle is the practice of gaining clarity in what truly matters, focusing action on the vital few, and clarity in choosing the direction where our effort creates disproportionate impact. Or more simply, 80-20 principle is the art of ability to look at a mess and see the hidden structure. We often see that as a student like me, as a young people like everyone here, as a dreamer, we are told to do more, to gain more, to join more, to become a person with mind. But is that true? Ambitious is beautiful, but ambitious without clarity becomes exhaustion. We don't need to chase everything become something meaningful. We need to be courage. We need to be more clarity in what we do, in the choice And then, because 80-20 is not about doing less with less ambitions. It's about how can we do with our low, but the result can turn more and more. That means it's about doing more and give more. So, to end my speech, I want to ask you is, where is the 20% of your energy that can bring you all closer to your 80% of your dream?